Well, in the quest for perfection on this particular model, I must admit that the longer I look at this piece, the more that little detail right there grinds on me. Just can't live with it. It's killing me. That little half a hole right there. I said, yeah, we're going to fill it in. We're going to put JB Weld on it. We're going to fake it. You'll never see it when you paint it. But just like anything else you do, if you're going to do it right. And the more I stare at that, it just tears me up. So here's my plan. Looking at the face of this thing, this is a pretty good crown right there. So I think I'm going to make that flat. I am going to mill away the face of this part until that half hole feature right there goes away. That is going to be step number one. Then I'll take a file and I'll put all these casting radiuses back on it and sandblast it to make it look like a casting, but that little ugly right there is going to go away. That will not be on my model. I can't have it. And inspired by some of your comments, yes, I will change the little washer, this little guy right here, to brass. And I do believe that I'm going to continue this bore all the way through, knock them threads out on the bottom. So there will be two of these. The bottom one will have threads, the top one will not. And when you tighten the handle down, it'll pull the two together and pinch. So let's put this in the machine and see if we can recover. Now, the whole idea here is to keep it looking like a casting, so this surface is coming off. Minimal, of course. I want to make contact with the bottom and contact with the side and take only enough to make that scallop go away. That's going to bug me forever if it's there, so here we go. It's a good thing I have the magnification of this camera because it is almost impossible to actually look straight at that and see those remnant threads right there. Let's take another 5 off of that surface and let's see what happens. All right, 5 it is. What you're seeing now is the bottom half of the hole, the step from this wall to that wall. So this wall has got to be kissed. You can get the cutter over there and just remove half of the Sharpie marker thickness. Yeah, in my dreams. And then we're going to jump over to this side and just take this land out over here as well. I am a-okay with this fix. Sometimes you just got to make something before you can make something better. Looks like a crime scene now, doesn't it? Maybe that'll be my thumbnail. Horrific shop injury. I'll get 1,000,000 hits just from the title. There we go. All right, the scuff indicates I am right there. I go any deeper, I'm going to put a line in the top that I do not want. The only other part is a small step right there on my fingernail, as you can see it. That's got to come off, and then I'll blend the rest with a file. Put the radiuses back on and blast it. I'm happy with that. This is straight out of the machine. There has been no handwork done to this as of yet. And I think that looks a lot better with that front ugly gone. I do have to reblend all these corners and finish blending that out right there. And I think we're going to be back on the track. Additionally, those threads are going away. This is going to be a two-sided brass plug, and it's going to squeeze from the top and bottom. I just think that's a better way to go. So thank you to everybody that pushed me into that. You were right, and I cheated the first time around because I was hot and short on time. I'll be back. Let's take the counter bore all the way through to the bottom here without going further down, because then we got another ugly we got to take care of. Pick up the hole like any other hole. Once you got it zeroed out, good to go. I'm going to creep down on this very slowly until I break through the bottom. With the assistance of a mirror, I can keep track of this feature as it develops. And sorry that's not camera angled, but it's got to be for me this time around. You go. All right, last minute change in my thought process. I did not break all the way through. I left about a 10,000ths land in there, so if I ever remove the handle, that brass slug does not fall down into the machine, the lower half. I think you can see it right there. It's a pretty good angle on it. The other hole you see is the keyway screw hole for the spindle. If this proves to be a problem, I could just get back in there and knock that out, but for now I'm going to leave it just like it is. Let's clean it up with a file, and I'll show you what it looks like before I blast it. Real time, 5 minutes, 44 seconds. I am midway into the re-radiusing of this little casting right here. And I think once it's blasted, it'll look exactly the way it should. But the reason for this little segment right now is that part in the center that I'm taking out, I'm doing with a modified square file. And the only modification is that I've removed the teeth on the downside. So I can rest this file on this surface as I contour that material off. So you will see scratches on this surface. You can see the scratches there. But I'm not really removing anything because the teeth are gone from that file. That's that file of the side. That side of the file. Okay, it's a good trick. Don't be afraid to modify your files. I don't think there is a small file that I have that hasn't been tweaked in some manner. Make the file work for you. Okay. Now, as soon as that little ugly's gone right there, I will blast it and show it to you. Prior to the blasting operation, all of the surfaces that you do not want to damage, plug them, cover them, do what you got to do. I'm going to turn the pressure down just enough to wipe the file marks off of this, and this is going to look exactly like a casting when it comes back out. Very important, don't forget to plug the things that you do not want to see damaged. And following the blast operation, everything looks like it should. All the radiuses blend very nicely, all the surfaces are good and clean. And the ugly is gone. Big plus. I was not okay with that. All right, let's make some blast plugs. let's make some brass plugs and finish this up the right way. That'll even bend the handle. And as of yet, it is still straight. And I'm hoping that it bends right on the neck down section and does not snap off. So Okay, it is time to figure out how to put the little scallops on the slugs. You have the cylinder of your spindle of your tailstock, and the slugs that we want are probably going to hit something like this. Bottom one's got threads, hopefully nicer looking than that, and the top one is a through hole. So as you drop the screw through here and it engages the bottom, when you tighten it, it squeezes, therefore pinching in two places here. Technically the rejection goes that way, so depending on how nice and tight this fits, you're going to get what you get. How to position the cutter to make these cuts accurately? Well, you need to know the gap between the two slugs, because you don't want them coming together. It doesn't tighten if they're coming together, so you're going to leave some air in there. I'm going to leave 3/4 of a millimeter, 0.30, give or take. And that is 15 to the top, 15 to the bottom. So realistically, the center line is there. All right, knowing the radius of the tool that we're going to use to do this, this is an 0.93 radius. Minus the gap. Put half the gap on top, half the gap on the bottom, right? So we're going to use 15 as the value either way. 15 from 93 is 78. Here to here. And that is almost exactly 2 millimeters. Pretty close. How do we set that 78? Well, that's a piece of cake. You take your cutter and you run your cutter along the face of your part. That is now 0 because it's right there. And then you just move in 0.78. So now this height is set. When I made this feature on the tailstock, literally 2 days ago, I know that my offset from the center to the center of the spindle was 142. Indicate the part, find your 0, shift over 142. When you have your dusted face, you have everything you need to plunge that cutter and make this feature on your slug. We're going to do it twice, and then it's just a matter of figuring out how long these parts are going to be. Go to the machine and do it. Okay guys, off camera, I swept either side of this with the indicator to come up with my center line. I'm going to kiss the end of the part now with the cutter. Get my other center line. The end of the part is now dusted. Move in whatever the offset is that you calculated on the pad. We're looking for 0.78, 2 millimeters. And that is a coincidence. That is not specific. I'm going to raise the cutter up off the part now because this is going to be a plunge cut. Now just the exact center of the two features on the tailstock, which was 142. This is going to be a very small scallop, right on that corner right there. And you can see it. That is what's going to bite down on the spindle. It's a whole lot more surface contact than an angle or point or whatever. So that's going to really work out well. Flip the part around, do the exact same thing to the other side. That's the working scallop right there. I'm happy with the size of that. If it were any thinner to the thread, the pressure might have a tendency to collapse the thread and ruin the fit. Well, let's take a look at how it fits in the tailstock. Okay, just for sake of illustration, you can see the cutout inside the tailstock right there. Okay, there you go. See how the radius matches the bore? And when you tighten it down there, both of them are going to come together. Knowing that the hole itself is 188, you have 93 to here, plus whatever you have on the top and bottom for the overall length of the slugs. This is dealer's choice right now. I'm going to make the bottom about 100 long. I'm going to make the top about 130 long. We'll see how that works out. Simple parting operations, everything else is done. And that is hard to shoot. Okay, now the concept behind the split bushing. And forgive it looks like I'm shaking here. Believe it or not, it is incredibly hard to stay perfectly still at this magnification. When I unloosen the handle, you can see the two scallops that will match the radius of the spindle. And when the handle is torqued down, those two halves will come together, pinching the spindle. In that hole. That way. And if all went well, it should fit, it should be flush. Now doing this, it is a little tricky. You can put the whole thing in as an assembly like I'm going to do right here. But getting this thing down in here, you better make sure that these pieces are clocked correctly or you're never going to get it in. And just mess with it for a minute. So you have to drop in. Alright, let me mess with it off camera for a minute. I'm going to put the bottom one in, move it into position. Top one should be easy. So let's do the bottom one first. Let's do it on camera, why not? Alright, nobody's that lucky. That went right in the first try. This is also the difficulty you'll have if that slug is too long. Man, this is rough, people. There we go. And now the top. I think that was time well spent. That is actually tighter than you would think. afraid to let it drop out. I may never get a clock back in there. There you go. It is time to mark the handle and figure out how to bend this handle. I'm going to make a couple of small brass helper pieces to act as guides so I can hold on that thread and heat it up and bend it. I want the handle about 30 degrees that way and about 30 degrees up. That was time well spent. I like that. All right, let's bend that handle. Just as an installation side note, when you're doing something like this and there's only one way that this goes in, I'm going to intentionally throw it out of rotation and drop it in the hole. At least that's the plan. There you go. I'm going to throw it out of rotation and drop it in the hole. You can see how much higher than the hole it sits. Even with pressure on it, it doesn't go in. As you spin it, it will find its seat. There it is. Let's pop it out, see what that looks like. Okay, you can see they're clocked correctly, but without resistance on it, it drops down. Cool. Okay. Confirm you have your rotation correctly by spinning the part. Watch for it, the lowest spot in the installation, and then you know what you got. It would be a shame to have this thing out of sequence, bend the handle, and then find out you weren't on the low spot. For the bending operation, I put a black reference line on the handle when the handle was in position, and that is the direction that I want to bend to. So there's also a black line on this arbor. I will squeeze this in the vise accordingly and just simply push in the direction of the line, and the clocking should be spot on with any kind of luck. Let's do it. For a bending operation like this, the one thing that you will notice is that any peripheral contact with the part is going to suck the heat right off the part. So the brass nest that this handle is sitting in, I'm going to preheat that first so that I can maintain as much of the heat in the part as humanly possible. Now, believe it or not, every time I put that top cap on, you can see that the red goes away from the handle because the heat's going right up into that brass and consequently right into my hand. So that is really hot. Going to step over to the lathe, put a couple of relief cuts in it like a heat sink, and maybe that'll make a difference. Do not push this. When this part is glowing red, that's when you want it to move, and just put enough pressure on it to let the material tell you that it's moving at a good pace. There's the cuts. Heat everything back up, bottom and top and the part. Take your time. Once that starts to glow red, don't melt the part, just get it red enough that it's going to cooperate, and all should end well. All right, we're going to call that a win. That handle is exactly where I wanted it. And it's not going to go back in with one hand, that's for sure. Anyway, there you go, guys. That is complete. Brass bushings on the inside, the ugly on the front is gone. The radiuses, it's all blasted. Looks like a casting again. Now I can sleep. I was just not happy with the way it was before. And you know what? If it bugs you, go back and fix it. Make it right. Thanks again for watching. I do appreciate it. Joe Pye, Advanced Innovations in Austin, Texas. I'm out.